Emily Carter had always imagined the night before her wedding would feel peaceful, maybe even joyful, like the quiet breath before a new life began. Instead, it felt like standing in the middle of a road without knowing which direction the cars were coming from. Everything inside her was restless. Her thoughts were quick, sharp, tangled. Her heart refused to slow down. The hotel suite around her was warm and softly lit, but none of it settled the storm inside her. New York City shimmered below the window, its lights stretching far into the distance. But even the city's steady glow couldn't calm her nerves. She kept walking back and forth across the carpet, rubbing her arms as if she were cold, though she wasn't. Her robe brushed lightly against her legs as she moved. She tried to breathe deeply, but every breath felt too thin. She tried to distract herself by fixing her hair, by organizing her suitcase, by staring at the elegant white dress hanging near the closet, but her focus kept breaking. She couldn't shake a single stubborn name from her thoughts. Daniel, the one name she had tried to bury. The one person she had avoided thinking about for months because she didn't want to reopen any old wounds. She had convinced herself she had moved on. She had convinced everyone else too. She was marrying Michael, a man who had been nothing but patient and steady. Her parents loved him. Her friends adored him. Her life finally felt predictable in a good way. She should have been celebrating that, but then Daniel's message arrived. It came in the middle of her final dress fitting. Just as her mother was fixing the veil and her best friend was telling her how perfect everything looked, Emily's phone buzzed. She almost ignored it until she glanced down and saw the name she had promised herself she would never let ruin her calm again. "We need to talk. I'm sending a few people to you. Please don't be afraid." It's 20 words. But they struck straight through her like a jolt. Her fingers had gone numb. She had hidden the phone before anyone noticed. She had forced a smile, forced a laugh, forced the rest of the fitting to continue. But inside, she was shaking. She didn't know if Daniel meant trouble or closure. She didn't know if he was trying to stop the wedding or simply say goodbye. She didn't even know where he had been for the last 3 months. But she knew one thing with painful clarity. She had never fully stopped caring. Now she sat alone in her hotel suite, replaying that message over and over until it felt carved into her mind. The suite around her was too quiet for someone whose heart had never been this loud. Every time she blinked, she imagined him standing at her door. Every time she inhaled, she remembered how it felt to be loved by him. Messy, complicated, but deeply. Too deeply. She heard a noise in the hallway. Her breath caught. Another sound. A soft shuffle, then a calm, polite knock. Emily froze. Her first instinct was fear. Her second was hope. Her third was a mix of the two, so strong it made her knees weak. She walked to the door slowly, her hand hovering over the handle. She told herself not to open it. She told herself this was a bad idea. She told herself she was getting married in less than 17 hours. But she opened the door anyway. 3 men stood in the hallway. Not dangerous looking. Not threatening. Just 3 men dressed neatly, holding quiet expressions that made it clear they had come with a purpose. One was tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes. Another was shorter and carried a wooden box no bigger than a jewelry case. The third held a sealed envelope in one hand, standing with the calmness of someone who knew he wasn't here to cause harm. "Ms. Carter," the tallest man asked gently. Emily nodded, her throat too tight to answer. "We're here on behalf of Daniel Hayes," he continued with a respectful tone. "He asked us to bring you something tonight. He wants you to have it before tomorrow." Emily's heart seemed to stop and restart all at once. Hearing Daniel's full name out loud in this hotel hallway on this night hit her harder than she expected. She looked from one man to another, trying to understand the situation. Nothing made sense. Why didn't he come himself? She asked quietly. The tall man hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. He thought seeing him might overwhelm you, or make things harder for you. He said, "You deserve peace tonight." Peace. What a strange word coming from Daniel. He had always been the storm in her life, beautiful but chaotic, passionate but unpredictable. She loved him for it once. And she left him because she couldn't live with it forever. The shorter man stepped forward and held out the sealed envelope. He said, "You should read this first." Emily stared at the envelope. She didn't want to reach for it, but her hand lifted on its own. The paper was warm from his palm. The handwriting on the front was Daniel's messy, heavy strokes, the same style she used to tease him about. A single look at his handwriting was enough to make her chest tighten. She swallowed hard. The third man, the quiet one, spoke for the first time. He said the letter will explain everything he couldn't say in person. Emily's breath shook. Her eyes flicked to the wooden box in the other man's hands. "What's that?" she whispered. "A memory," he replied simply. "He didn't tell us more than that. Just that it was important." Emily's fingers tightened around the envelope. Her mind raced with questions she didn't dare speak aloud. She didn't want drama. She didn't want chaos. She didn't want the past to ruin her tomorrow. But the past seemed to have arrived anyway, carried in the hands of three men she had never seen before. She looked back into her suite. The soft lights. The wedding dress. The carefully arranged flowers. Everything in the room represented the life she had chosen, the life she was hours away from stepping into. A life with safety, with calm, with Michael. But now her past was standing at her door asking for one more moment. "Do I have to open this right now?" she asked, gripping the envelope slightly. "No," the tall man said gently. "You open it only if you want to. Daniel said he respects whatever choice you make." Choice. She hated that word. It felt too heavy, too sharp, too close to something she thought she had already dealt with. She had chosen Michael, chosen stability, chosen a path free from heartbreak. But her heart had not been consulted tonight. Emily drew a slow, uneven breath. "Where is he?" The men exchanged a quick look, as if deciding who should answer. Finally, the short man said, "He's downstairs in the lobby. He said he won't come up. He won't call you again. He won't ask for anything more. He just wanted you to have the truth before tomorrow." Emily took a step back, needing the distance. Her heartbeat was too loud. Her mind felt split in two, one side pulling toward the life she had built, the other toward the past she never fully healed from. She didn't know what Daniel wanted. She didn't know what the letter said. She didn't know what was inside the wooden box. And she didn't know why her breath had become so unsteady. The tall man noticed her trembling and softened his voice. "Emily, we aren't here to disturb you. If you want us to leave right now, we will. Just say the word." She appreciated the gentleness in his tone. They weren't forcing anything. They weren't pushing. They were simply delivering a message from someone. She once thought she would marry. Emily looked down at the envelope in her hand again. It felt heavier than paper should ever feel. She didn't want to read it. She didn't want to feel anything Daniel had to say. She didn't want to remember the nights they stayed up talking until sunrise, or the arguments that broke them, or the apology he never gave, or the goodbye they never properly said. Yet. If she didn't read it, if she didn't face this one last thing, would it follow her into her marriage, into her new life, into her future? The quiet man spoke again. He said, "The truth matters more than timing." That sentence cut deeper than she expected. Emily stepped aside slowly, motioning them into the room. "Come in," she said softly. The three men entered respectfully, standing near the door, not touching anything. The room felt smaller with them inside, but the air felt more honest somehow. Emily closed the door. Her fingers still wrapped tightly around the envelope. She knew with sudden clarity that whatever she did next would shape everything. Her heart, her wedding, her future. Her whole life seemed to balance on the thin edge of sealed paper. She inhaled sharply. Then she turned toward the bed, the envelope trembling in her hand, and whispered, "I'll read it." And the night before her wedding truly began. Emily Carter held the envelope in her trembling hands, staring at Daniel's familiar handwriting. Each stroke, each curl of the letters brought back memories she thought she had buried. She felt as if the room itself had grown smaller, pressing in on her heart. Every sound from the city below seemed distant, unimportant. All that mattered was the paper in her hands, the wooden box beside it, and the quiet presence of the three men who waited like ghosts of a past she had never fully let go of. Her fingers shook as she slowly broke the seal. The paper unfolded with a crisp sound that seemed louder than it should have been. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to read. Each word hit her chest like a stone. Emily, I know tomorrow is your wedding. I know I'm too late. But I needed you to have the truth before you say your vows. You deserve that much. Whatever you decide afterward, I won't stop you. She paused, holding the letter closer, her eyes blurring. Her thoughts rushed back to every shared smile, every quiet conversation, every argument that ended in silence instead of understanding. Daniel had been her first love, the one she never forgot, even as she built a life with Michael. I didn't fight for you when I should have. I let fear win. But loving you was the clearest thing in my life. This isn't about getting you back. This is about letting you choose with a full heart, not a broken one. Her chest tightened. She pressed a hand to it as if she could physically hold her heart in place. Daniel wasn't asking for a second chance. He wasn't demanding anything. He was simply giving her honesty, raw and unfiltered. A truth she hadn't realized she still craved. The wooden box caught her attention. The shortest man stepped forward, hand steady, and said, "He asked that you open this only if your heart wants to." Emily hesitated. She wanted to stop. She wanted to throw the envelope aside, leave the box closed, retreat into the safety of her room and tomorrow's wedding. But something deeper, something she had ignored for months, pulled her forward. She carefully lifted the lid. Inside was a simple necklace. A delicate chain held a tiny glass charm, and inside it lay a single pressed white wildflower. Her breath caught. She recognized it immediately. The wildflower came from the field behind Daniel's old cabin, the place where they had spent countless afternoons together, where they had laughed and cried and shared their first kiss. She remembered the flower he had tucked into her hair on a cold autumn day. She remembered thinking then that she might never forget him. And now, years later, he had preserved that memory, given it back to her in this small, gentle way. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes. She clutched the charm tightly, feeling as if it were a fragment of the life they had once shared. A fragment he had kept just for her. She looked up, meeting the men's calm, patient eyes. There was no judgment in them, only respect. They weren't here to manipulate her. They were here to deliver a message and then step back, leaving her with the choice she had always had but had never truly faced. "Where is he now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The men exchanged a look. "He's in the lobby," the tallest one said. "He said he will stay there until midnight. After that, he leaves the city for good. He wanted you to have this before you make your choice. After that, he will not return." Midnight. Emily's pulse spiked. She looked down at the letter, then at the necklace, then back at the three men. Her entire future seemed to hinge on the next decision she made. She was supposed to marry Michael in the morning. He was steady, reliable, kind. Michael had loved her in a quiet way, always predictable, always safe. But Daniel had been wild, complicated, passionate, the kind of love that left marks on your soul that no time could erase. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, the charm resting against her palm. She thought about Michael, about the life they had built together, about how much he had waited, how much he had trusted her to walk down the aisle tomorrow. She didn't want to hurt him. She loved him too. But her heart felt tangled, raw, and alive in ways she hadn't expected tonight. She read Daniel's letter again, more slowly this time, savoring the words, feeling the weight behind them. Every sentence was meant to bring clarity, not chaos, but the clarity felt heavy. Her past and her present collided in her chest, each demanding attention, each asking her to choose. The quiet man who had been standing silently said, "He wanted you to see him, but only if you wanted to. He isn't forcing anything. He said you must choose with your heart, not out of obligation or fear." Emily swallowed hard. She felt tears spill down her cheeks. It was the first time in months she had allowed herself to feel completely. She had spent so long convincing herself she was over Daniel. She had spent months preparing for a life with Michael, and yet here she was, feeling more alive and uncertain than she had in years. She looked down at the wildflower again, running her fingers over the delicate petals pressed inside the glass. Memories came flooding back. The laughter, the arguments, the silent walks in the park. The way Daniel had always noticed the smallest details about her. Michael had never been that kind of storm. But Daniel had been. He had made her feel alive, even when it was messy. Her mind raced. If she went to the lobby now, she would see him one last time before he left. She could ask questions, speak words she had never spoken, confront the past in a way she had avoided. But she also had tomorrow to think about: her wedding, her commitment to Michael, her future. She had promised herself a new life, one built on security, love, and trust. Yet the pull to face Daniel was irresistible. Finally, she rose from the bed, the envelope and the box still clutched in her hands. She moved toward the door, each step deliberate, each heartbeat loud in her chest. She glanced at the three men who watched her with patience and respect. They did not speak. They simply waited, as if they understood that the next moment belonged entirely to her. As she opened the door, a gust of cool air from the hallway brushed her face. The city lights glinted in the distance through the glass doors, and she felt the weight of every decision pressing down. She walked slowly down the hall, each step measured, her mind filled with questions she had no answers to. How long had he waited in the lobby? Would he even recognize the woman standing before him now? Could they speak without tearing open wounds that were still tender? She reached the lobby and saw him immediately. Daniel stood near the large windows, the city lights behind him like a halo. His posture was straight, but his shoulders carried the weight of someone who had been holding back feelings for months. When he noticed her, his eyes softened, and a flicker of relief crossed his face. He didn't move toward her. He didn't speak. He simply waited, giving her the choice as he had promised. Emily's legs felt like they were moving through water. She held the envelope and box tightly against her chest, as if they were shields to protect her from the intensity of the moment. And yet, as she stepped closer, she felt a strange clarity. This wasn't about undoing her life with Michael. This wasn't about chaos. It was about truth. It was about understanding her heart fully before she moved forward. Daniel's voice, low and soft, finally broke the silence. "Emily," he said, careful, measured. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to have this. To have everything clear before tomorrow." She nodded, unable to speak at first. The raw honesty in his tone, the vulnerability, the curate struck her harder than any argument or confession ever could. She wanted to say something. She wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry, to do every human thing at once. But she simply stood there looking at him, letting the moments stretch between them like the pause before a storm breaks. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you." It wasn't enough, but it was all she could manage. Daniel gave a faint smile and stepped back, letting the space between them remain sacred. He wasn't asking for more. He wasn't begging. He was leaving it in her hands, just as he had promised. Emily turned and walked back toward the elevator, the envelope and the box still in her hands. She felt a strange sense of peace, even amid the chaos of emotions. She had faced the past, seen the truth, and still had tomorrow ahead of her. Whatever choice she made after tonight, she knew it would come from her heart, fully aware and fully honest. Back in her suite, she placed the necklace gently on the bedside table, the wildflower catching the soft glow of the lamp. She opened the envelope again, reading Daniel's words one more time. There was no demand, no guilt, no manipulation, only clarity, honesty, and respect for her heart. She sank onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Michael, thinking about Daniel, thinking about herself. She realized that life wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about making choices that reflected the deepest parts of her soul. And now, having faced Daniel's truth, she could step into her future with eyes wide open, no matter where it led. The clock ticked closer to midnight. Emily felt a strange calm settle over her. She had loved, she had lost, she had been given clarity. She didn't yet know the choice she would make tomorrow, but for the first time in months, she felt like her heart belonged fully to her own hands. And as the city hummed softly below, Emily Carter finally understood that truth honest, unfiltered, and delivered by someone who had never stopped caring. It's the only thing that could guide her through the night before her wedding. She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and allowed herself to feel everything.